Hi students, we're on to chapter 3 in our advertising class. And this chapter is all about public relations. I mentioned this the last time we were describing what advertising was, and we're going to talk about the differences. You might hear about them kind of grouped together, advertising and public relations, but they're entirely different but linked together. What is public relations? A communication discipline covering a wide range of functions that help an organization connect with the people it touches. A strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. So I'm going to give you an example of a press release that I'm working on. Uh, in my last advertising class, we worked with Chef Robert Irvine and his Fit Crunch bar. And since then, they have decided to hire some of my students from that class for an internship. So I thought it would be a great way to get a little press by asking Chef Robert Irvine if they would create a press release about the partnership with our university, our marketing department, and our students and their internship program. It's a good feeling piece that shows a professional celebrity chef connecting with the university on a different kind of level than we're used to hearing about. So there's beneficial relationships happening here. We as the university get to be connected with the celebrity chef. It legitimizes our marketing courses, as well as it helps Robert Irvine, because now he's connected philanthropically a little bit with the university. He's reaching out, he's connecting with young people. He's also promoting his Fit Crunch protein bars at the same time. So it's a win-win for everybody. So what is public relations? Public relations focuses on all the relationships an organization has with various publics. But what do I mean by publics? Publics are employees, local community members, shareholders, customers, institutions. Stakeholders are people who have a stake in a company or organization. So as I mentioned, every organization has a PR department or media department. And especially in the political climate that we live in now, it's very important to have someone ready at any moment to work with the press in case there's something positive, and typically it's negative. So an example of a company that recently needed their PR department, well, let's think of, say, PepsiCo, who owns Quaker Oats, who owns Aunt Jemima. Okay, enough said there. So with the heated racial conflicts and protests, this has been a company that has been protested many times for their products, but they have ignored them, kind of swept them under the rug, and now with Black Lives Matters being at the forefront, this is a company that now needed to put information out there about how sorry they were that they had a product that was connected with racial tensions and slavery, and also talk about what they're going to do in the future by taking this iconic figure and creating something else out of it. So public opinion refers to what people think, their beliefs based on perceptions, evaluations of events, people, institutions, and products. And this is so important because if there's a negative public opinion out there about somebody, it is important for them to build a positive image about their product, their services, their person, their company. So public relations strategists want to know what publics are important to us now and in the future, and what do these publics think. So that's where opinion leaders come in, and these are important people who influence the opinions of others. So many times companies have ambassadors available to help people understand and maybe have a different take on a product, so that they have a better understanding of the services that they offer, especially if they're something that is negative. So reputation, goodwill, trust, and integrity. More than ever, it's so important that companies are trusted and they have good intentions. And public goodwill is a company's greatest asset. It's an integrity that involves more than just an image. It's a result of a company's actual behavior. And one of your exercises, field exercises this week, was to think about a company during COVID-19 that was, giving back and connecting with you. So public relations is the conscience of the company, creating trust and maintaining its integrity. So think about, if you are working for a company right now, does the company you work for give back in some philanthropic way? Perhaps they donate their time, perhaps they donate something financially, to something in a community. So here's an example of a company, Marriott. We're all familiar with Marriott Hotels. They're building goodwill during coronavirus. They donated $10 million in hotel stays. And we all know this hotel chain, and they also have partnerships with American Express, JP Morgan, and they stepped up with a program called Rooms for Responders. And it's $10 million worth of stays for members of the American College of Emergency Physicians. Nurses are involved here, in the hardest hit areas like New York, New Orleans, and Detroit. And they gave discounted rooms all over to first responders. And I know a lot of the area hotels are giving things a discount called Local Heroes. And it's for EMT, anyone in the medical field, sometimes military, and some of them are doing work with, yay, teachers. So they gave a pretty big, deep discount for local teachers, the Marriott in Delray. So hoping to take advantage of some of this during these times this summer. Okay, so how do public relations contributes to the brand? Okay, PR contributes significantly to our perceptions about a brand. So you can even think about brands during this COVID-19 pandemic. Who has stepped up? Who has given back? Who has been there to serve the community and to help us during difficult times? Another company that does good is Bombas. You know them. They sell the socks, and they've given away over 10,000 pairs of socks. I'm sorry, 10 million pairs of socks donated. And so when you buy a pair, they give away a pair. And they do have work with homelessness, and they do have a major impact in our society. So that's a great example. Here's another one. This is called Love Your Lemon, and their mission is to give a hat to every child who's battling cancer. And we know if you're going through chemo, you lose your hair and you want to look cool. So they sell these hats and scarves, and they donate 50% back to cancer research. And this company was founded in 2012, so they're relatively new, much like Bombas. So comparing PR and advertising. This is definitely going to be on the quiz, so let's keep this in mind, okay? Control is the big thing. So with news stories, public relations strategists are at the mercy of what they call the media gatekeeper. Okay, that's the person at the news station or at the newspaper or wherever news is being spewed, that they decide what stories should be used. Sometimes there's a lot of time in a day where they need to fill the news day with stories, and other times there's so much going on, especially today, that stories don't necessarily get run. There's no guarantee that it will get run, and it might be rewritten, cut down, reorganized. But in contrast, as I mentioned, advertising runs exactly as the client paid for. So if it's a certain time of day or it's a certain place between two shows, or it's placed in a magazine in the front cover, wherever you paid for it, that's where it's going to go. It's been approved and it's been scheduled. Versus a press release, public relations, you just never know. So how does it contribute to the perception of the brand more about this? As opposed to advertising, public relations takes a longer, broader view of the importance of an image and a reputation as a corporate competitive asset. So PR seeks to persuade those media gatekeepers I told you about that cover their companies. Gatekeepers are those people, like I said, writers, editors, producers of talk shows, coordinators, newscasters. So this aspect of public relations is called publicity. And it's really important to have media relations with these editors, producers, coordinators, so that when something needs to be promoted in a press release, they'll consider that relationship and be more likely to promote it. So the top PR stories of 2019, clearly you can tell that my interests lie in the food world. Almost every example I offer is food related. I have a food background, but this whole Popeye's chicken sandwich scandal, press release, stunt, pretty much caught a lot of people off guard. And people always wonder, like, did they mean to run out of this? What was the stunt that they pulled against Chick-fil-A? And did they want to run out so that it would kind of, draw more attention? And I think that's exactly what they did. They made something kind of unavailable or a limited version of it, and they got a lot of people involved and talked it up. I personally have not tried this, but I heard it rivals the Chick-fil-A sandwich for sure. So how does PR work? So yes, look at this big flower here. It's 20 key publics. So of 20 key publics of a typical multinational corporation, relationship management programs focus on media. There's media here, employees, the financial community, government, and the general public. So there's a lot of people connected here in the public. So aspects of public relations that focus on relationships. I mentioned before that media relations are very important. One must know who in the media might be interested in the organization's stories. So for instance, I worked for a university in Philadelphia that had a food marketing program. So when something interesting went on in the news, for instance, when Amazon bought Whole Foods, they tapped into our university and got the opinions of some of our professors that were food marketing associated in the food industry. Higher ed, they might tap into us if there's something going on right now with coronavirus and whether or not we're going to be going back to school in the fall. Sports writers connected with our football program. Again, if we're going back to football, which it looks like we are. But these relationships are built on honesty and accuracy and professionalism. There's also employee relations, and that goes on internally for the company. So the bigger the company, the more communication efforts go on for the employee. It could be anything from a new dining room, dining opportunities to a health fair. Financial relations, communications aimed at the financial community. So maybe if you were talking about as a public company, they might want your annual reports. There may be meetings of different investors, and there might need to be press releases that go out to business publications. Okay, public affairs has to do with the government and the public on issues related to government and regulation. So lobbying is to get when you may have heard of a lobbyist, it's someone who gets legislation to support a bill. Um, issue management, monitoring, communicating to the public. Things happen a lot with the public and can go, negative quite quickly. And you need to have someone in place who's going to work with the press to kind of spin it in the right direction. And you need someone who's prepared to do that in case there is a something negative that happens. So here's a great example of that. The show, it's been around for a couple years, This Is Us. A lot of people love that show. I got into it for a while, but the purpose I'm telling you this is there was a show where they had a fire that burned down the family's home. And it happened because of a crock pot that went on the fritz and basically sparked. It was old and caused a fire in the home. And so what happened was they had no idea that this crock pot, which is a brand name, okay, all of a sudden after that show aired, everybody that had a crock pot of a certain age, because this was a dated show, taking place in the 70s, who may still have had that, were wondering whether or not they were going to have the same kind of issues too, with it sparking and causing a fire. So out of nowhere, that company Crockpot had to get with the press right away and to communicate to the public and say, by no means is this an example of what happens with our units. This is just a show, but we think these shows are real life because they're using a real brand. So that's an issue that came up as an example. Okay, more aspects of public relations. Encompasses communities in a broader society, both geographically and ethnically, and it considers diverse communities, the underrepresented and the underserved when you're talking about community relations, especially now. For instance, FAU has a diversity department, and they work with students, especially with Black Lives Matter. It was important to show the community that we are taking a stand and that we are trying to work positively for better relationships. Another area of community relationships or relations is also called cause marketing. And we'll get into some examples here. Cause marketing is more about something philanthropic that you're a part of. And we have a couple slides coming up that you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So the aspects of public relations still focus on relationships. Consumer relations or consumer relationship management, otherwise known as CRM. You may have worked with software such as Salesforce. Okay, and it's very important for companies to have a relationship with their customers. It builds the brand, it builds sales, and it keeps customers, and it helps with marketing things like new products and services. If there's a communication problem, educating customers on things. So I gave you as one of your exercises during your field exercises, what have brands you are loyal to done for you in terms of a customer relationship? It could be a discount. It could be information. It could be an invitation to something. Those are the kinds of things that help build a relationship. It could be a loyalty program that you're a part of and you get so many points for doing something. It could be a referral system. This is how companies build a relationship, and it's called customer relationship management. The aspect of public relations that focuses on particular functions. So corporate reputation management, we know, is very important. Corporate relations focuses on an organization's image and reputation. So reputation management strengthens stakeholder trust, and that's where things like corporate social responsibility comes in. Good work in the community, as I mentioned before, Marriott. There's another example of Tide Cleaners here in the area. They were doing things like, aside from doing loads of hope, they were doing during COVID, helping first responders with their laundry, knowing how busy they were. For free, you could drop laundry off. So this is a kind of corporate responsibility and social responsibility we're talking about. So going back a little bit, we talked about a thing called crisis management, which is why you need to have a public relations department in case something does come up. We have to anticipate that disasters happen. They may not ever, but if something does come up, you have to get on it right away and work with the media and work with your stakeholders so they know that you're getting back to a balance, and you're realizing that there is a crisis and maybe you're at fault. So there were very many crises in the past. Some of them are very famous. In 1982, there was a Tylenol poisoning and tampering, which led to different types of safety caps on drugs. A Toyota recall of 2010. An oil disaster for BP in 2010. The Catholic Church sex scandals, that's ongoing. Pepsi, we mentioned Aunt Jemima before, and Uncle Ben's and other companies that need to take a look at what they're saying and what their public image is. Effective crisis plans can help both avoid crises and ease the damage if one does occur. So every company has a plan in place. Sometimes you can't predict things. Okay. Public communication campaigns intend to change the public's opinion or discourage harmful behaviors. So some of you may have seen the Tobacco Truth campaign. It's very impactful, some of the things that they do in their campaigns. Maybe you can think of an example of your own. So what are some common public relations tools? Okay, paid media. The sponsoring organizations pays for media and controls how and when the message is delivered. Okay, that's like an advertorial. So you may see maybe in a magazine, drug companies do this a lot. You may see this in a travel type magazine or food magazine. One side they have an ad, and on the left side you think you're reading information, but in fact you're reading more of an editorial that's skewed to promotion of the product or service. Owned media. Channels owned and controlled by the sponsoring organization. So for instance, FAU has their own website and blogs or sponsored events. Does not control how and when the information is used. Earned media is consumers and mass media control mentions and comments about a brand. So this is the most credible media option because it's like a third party coming in. So for instance, we'll give the example of the chicken sandwich at Popeyes. They got so much earned media with, say, the Good Morning America host who was intrigued by this whole thing and decides, hey, I'm going to go out and try to track down my own chicken sandwich, and takes the whole crew with her and mentions it on the news and brings it up and shows images. So that's earned media. So what are some common public relation tools? A PSA, it's a public service announcement. It runs free on TV, radio, or print, and it's for charities or civic organizations, and it advances social causes. So I know you've all seen these hashtag Alone Together ads by the Ad Council. Stay home if you can, hashtag Alone Together, slow the spread of COVID-19, stay home if you can. Now it's all about wearing face masks. So quite frankly, I'm sick of seeing these PSAs, but they did serve a purpose in educating the masses during challenging times. Common PR tools continued. So advertising has corporate advertising where they focus maybe on the corporate image. For example, their Procter and Gamble owns many different products, and they might promote something like, the Olympics here on Mother's Day, and they might promote a lot of different products. It's more about an image of the corporation rather than a specific product. Corporate identity advertising used to enhance or maintain the reputation among specific audiences. News releases, videos, letters, these are all different tools in the toolbox of public relations. So when you do a press release, like we're going to do for Robert Irvine and the Fit Crunch bars and FAU that I mentioned earlier, it's who, what, when, where, how, okay? Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Those are the things you need to answer to keep people engaged and connect with your audience and answer the questions they may have. There's also video. We know that's very popular. And then pitch letters are really trying to get a feature story sold to a human interest angle, to a newspaper, a TV station, anyone that's in front of the public. There's press conferences, as you know, our president has many of them. Media tours, it's like a press conference on wheels where you go from town to town and you let people know about something. So this is a nice guideline if you ever are looking to write a press release. You have to use the ideas to communicate a message to customers and prospects. You have to be newsworthy. You write it like a reporter would write it. Provide good quotes, always a good idea. And contact your top outlets personally to see if they're going to be able to run it for you. Who knows? Maybe we could take this information from Robert Irvine that we get and we're promoting it through FAU and we get it on a local news channel. That's definitely possible. I think that's going to be a goal of mine. Okay, and there's a lot of material out there that's considered public relations, okay? It could be a pamphlet. It could be a bulletin, a newsletter, an insert, a position paper, anything, any kind of collateral material called publications. Other things like CDs, podcasts, books, videos, also considered public relations. Other tools you can use is a speakers bureau where you have a group of articulate people who can talk about certain topics. Remember I told you that whenever there was a food story in Philadelphia that they tapped into our faculty at St. Joseph's University because they were food marketing experts. That's like a group of people that can speak to a topic. Displays and exhibits, this typically is something that you'd see at, a mall, any public type place. It could be a booth or a rack or something that's holding your materials, or it could be a flat screen TV with a video. Special events and tours can be things celebrating, grand reopenings. I know a lot of gyms are doing grand reopenings now after COVID-19. Sponsored events by corporations. Tours and trips. I know the Truth Campaign did a campaign tour with different teens to spread the information about harmful effects of smoking. That's an example of a tour. One of the most famous promotional events was by Steve Jobs when he unveiled the iPad. That got a lot of buzz many, many years ago for Apple iPad. There's other online communication, which we're all aware of, but because it's in the textbook, I want to make sure we talk about it. We know what the internet is. Extranet is something that goes on within a company. External communication is anything from an email that's sent out, a website, a blog, a press release, anything like that. There is a company called PR Newswire. That is a great thing to connect with if you're ever trying to push out some information. A lot of companies use PR Newswire because They're very reputable and they have a lot of relationships. What's trending? Okay, we're getting near the end of this chapter. We know mobile communication is. We know visual storytelling. And that's actually what we're going to be doing with Robert Irvine. So when we do our press release, we found that it's probably a great idea to have Robert Irvine with his English accent and his guns, okay, talking about FAU's marketing students and our internship and his Fit Crunch bars. You know, words are one thing, but when you pair them up with the video, it makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of influencers that you follow use this type of tool to connect with all of you. Real-time marketing, messages based on current events. This is mainly social media. Okay. More what's trending, educational video content. We know that happens a lot with people's vlogs. Going viral. Digital security is definitely a concern. Hackers endangering our information, whether it's financial information. Recently, Wawa had an issue. I know Target had an issue. Twitter is also, well, a lot of these companies are kind of under fire. Twitter's under fire, Facebook's under fire, because they're allowing anybody to promote hate adage on their platform. So a lot of these social media platforms are going to be looked at in a little bit of a different way since this rhetoric has been spewing over the last few months. Brand owners will continue to integrate PR and advertising and marketing. Yes. One consistent voice. Social responsibility will continue, so will cause marketing. Measuring the effectiveness of PR efforts continues to evolve. It's kind of hard to know how well your public relations efforts went. The best way to kind of realize that is through mentions and reposts and likes and things like that, and sharing. That usually gives an algorithm as to whether or not the campaign worked. So I'm going to wrap up this chapter with a campaign that was created by Always, which I believe is a Procter & Gamble company. It gave a positive impact in the world of young girls, but at the same time, they are selling product, okay? It took a stance on an issue benefiting young women. More than 80% of women aged 16 to 24 viewed this and they liked it, and it was inspiring. So the next slide I have here, please check this YouTube video out. What I mean, how this campaign did well, okay? Hashtag Like a Girl had 64 million video views. 1,880 media placements on influential media sites, more than 290 million social impressions, 133,000 social mentions of hashtag Like a Girl. So it's actually inspiring. I've watched this many times. Many of my students have used this as one of their favorite ad campaigns as well. So please take a look at it, and I'm going to work with you on chapter 4 next.